And what's fascinating, can we share that part of it real quick or not? That we're unleashing, Matt, I'm going to call it unleashing, a tool that will allow us when we sit down with an individual or couple to identify based on biometrics and lifestyle that 6 PhDs have collaborated to create over 20 years. It will identify their lifespan.
Hey guys, this is Matt Helton with OneTrust Home Loans, your reverse mortgage experts, and you found the Serving Senior podcast. This is the podcast where we highlight those businesses and those professionals that serve seniors at such a high level, helping them thrive in retirement. And today we have 2 more of those great guests. We have Kerry and Tim from HonorShield, and they're going to share with us how they allow seniors to have fantastic retirements and fantastic finishes in what we call the game of life. So look forward to sharing that with you guys. How are y'all doing today?
Good.
Doing great, Matt. Yeah. Good to see your smiling face again, brother.
Hey, thanks for being here. I appreciate you guys. How y'all been lately?
Good, man.
Busy.
Yeah.
Moving, nonstop, enjoying the important things and advancing the equally important things, probably, right?
That's right.
Something like that.
That's great. Well, thank you guys for being here. I know some of your background story, but not everybody does. So maybe if you guys could share with us, who you are, where you're from, maybe your journey in the past, and how you got to HonorShield would be great to hear.
Yeah. So HonorShield, we founded it a few years ago, some partners and myself. And Tim and I have been friends a long time, just to explain that connection. And then we reconnected. We worked some in the mid 2010s and together, and then we reconnected last year because I needed a partner locally to help me build out Middle Tennessee. And then that grew into a bigger vision of once we kind of saw more skill sets coming together. So that's Tim and I's connection, and just kind of brothers from another mother.
Oh, nice.
Same passion for, families who are going through this process. But what kind of led to the creation of HonorShield was, it was kind of 20 years in the making, you might say. Part of my world, and as a CFP and a financial planner, I had a private practice, but for years and years ended up doing a lot of elder care planning. So there was a period where all the assisted livings, home care companies in Nashville just sent hundreds and hundreds of families to us to help deal with this craziness, right? That when someone needs care, whether it's home care or assisted living, memory care, nursing home, there's a financial component to that nobody's really standing there to help with. Okay. And, there's all this care community out there. And so what we ended up doing was helping build cash flow plans to fill that funding gap, where you've got the cost of their incomes here, their cost of care is here. And that gap there is what then turns into stress and wiping people out, and the husband or the one spouse wiping the other out on their way out. And so you move that into regular planning for transitioning folks into retirement from accumulation to distribution. And that was another chance for years of going in and going upstream from a prevention standpoint. So having seen the train wrecks, how do you implement, safety early to prevent those train wrecks? So that's really what HonorShield's about, is serving families in that pre-crisis planning when they're not in care yet, and they still have time to plan, to helping them close that care funding gap when they are in care. That's what we do.
Wow. Yeah. That's a technical version that is exceptionally detailed. And the kind of the guy on the curb version was, what? I don't think I care about this. This was, so when Kerry said we met, basically came together, I came under his brokerage firm back in the mid, 15, 16, whatever, for a couple of years. And my background in the senior benefit space with financial planning certifications and interest, I said, this is the guy. I want to work with him and learn from this brain. Back then, he was already a seasoned veteran. And so I started in, and as we were learning the core aspects of what's at his heart, which is really this this I don't want to misstate, but elder care entity, which ultimately, you say it this way, the portfolio buster, or that thing that no advisor is planning on. We literally just spent an hour and a half with an entire software that is astonishing with respect to what we're doing for our folks, but they're sitting there for 30 minutes going, oh yeah, we didn't really factor in that care at the end of life. Wow. And what's fascinating, can we share that part of it real quick? Or not? We're unleashing, Matt, I'm going to call it unleashing, a tool that will allow us, when we sit down with an individual or couple, to identify based on biometrics and lifestyle that 6 PhDs have collaborated to create over 20 years. It will identify their lifespan.
Their biological age. Biological
and chronological. I mean, basically predict their lifespan on Earth, okay? And so there's a portion of it's called the health span, and there's a portion of it that's called the care span, okay? So every advisor, every financial guy does the lifespan. They sit down, they go, how old are you going to live, Mr. Client?
Kind of, our industry defaults to age 95.
95.
Pretty much, or maybe 100 now. But
JP Morgan just went to 100. Everything's to 100, okay? So got to make sure you got money to 100. Well, the reality is everybody's sitting at that table going, my mother died at 53 and my father is 75 and looks like he's 90. I'm not making it to 100, or vice versa. They've got a grandma who's 104 and thinking about going into assisted living at this point. So this is a scientific process that we are going to be offering to the marketplace that will allow us, in a very brief setting. We may even want to test this off site with you, Matt, and kind of give you a little crystal ball into your longevity, right?
Sure.
But with that said, it's literally science that's going to present a lifespan. And in that lifespan, not just this is when science says you're going to leave planet Earth, but this is how many years prior to that departure you're going to need some level of care.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So that's HonorShield's fundamental focus. When Kerry founded in 2019, it was that culmination of all of this financial planning that realized the universe is neglecting this entity, the care span entity.
Well, in this major demographic shift in our country, I mean, it was already bad enough with the percentages of folks who are encountering this as it is out of our 330 plus million people. But we're in a shift right now from around 16% of the population, 65 and over, to up around 25%. That's an extra 30 million people roughly in that zone of life. So I know you work with the senior care industry. A lot of guests on the podcast are related to that. So the care industry is trying to keep up, right? You have the medical model that Medicare is connected to, and then you have all this care that's being done by 53 million family caregivers that's not Medicare reimbursed. You have the non-medical home care industry. You have assisted living, memory care, all of that, right? So that demographic shift is and our oldest boomers, Matt, are 78.
Right.
So like in your business, for example, one of the tools in your toolbox, obviously, is a home equity conversion loan.
I love how Matt says it, keeping them in their home.
Yeah, to keep them in there.
Because that's everybody we survey says, where do you want to receive care? I want to go to the nursing home. No, not at all. They want to be in home.
Yeah. So 88%, $12 trillion in this country is tied up in home equity right now. And so 88% of the people, like you said, would want to age in place at home. And so there has to be some entity in the country that can become the gold standard for the go-to on how to financially navigate that as a specialist. That's what we are. So you've got your general practitioners that get you to retirement, maybe into retirement, but this field of longevity care allocation planning is what I call it. It requires a specialist.
Wow.
So Matt, to that point, if I may, we haven't mentioned Kerry's book. He's actually got two. He's a prolific author. I think they're listed on Amazon.
Yeah, the first one, kind of a dramatic title, but the point is that the title is When Retirement Goes Bad, Life Sucks. Okay. And it talks about the defect in the portfolio, that our portfolios aren't designed to withstand that. But the good news is it's not a boring financial book. It's written around 4 stories. But yeah, When Retirement Goes Bad, Life Sucks. That's on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is more of a resource book, kind of an encyclopedia of solutions and all across the board resources. And that's called Financial Survival for Families in the Grip of Dementia. And that's going up on Amazon in the next couple of weeks, actually.
Yeah, really practical. So, Matt, one of the things that Kerry and I do all day as we're working together and helping folks is interrupt each other with other ideas. So, so if you want to just interrupt us, if something's on your mind that you want to pull out,
awesome.
Yeah, we literally will feed back and forth, because when I came back to him, literally it was the end of last year, he had founded HonorShield 2019. He's been now advancing this whole mission of working to address this neglected area in the financial advisor space, right? And what we've realized now is we've been full court press now for this year of 24. And of course, there were many things. Here's the blessing sometimes. You get to come into an arena where somebody's already plowed and fertilized and planted. And that's what I feel like. I'm jumping into a cornfield, preferably sweet corn is my favorite. So this is where I feel like we're at now. So here's what's happening. As Kerry's working through all of this and identifying, we're coming into this reality that denial is our biggest enemy. Okay. Yeah. Denial of what? Well, people know they're going to die, but nobody wants to plan for that. They want to plan to live. So they come into, their late 50s, early 60s, their retirement years, and everything's about, I've worked to come to this point and live off of, make your money work for you kind of stuff, right? And the reality is, Kerry calls it in his book, the ticking time bomb of care, okay, at the end of life. Now, there's 2 concerns there, Kerry. One, if you don't have enough money to take care of yourself or your spouse, and Kerry mentioned it, a lot of gentlemen who may be watching this podcast or their wives may share it with them.
Okay.
A lot of gentlemen take their wife out on their way out financially.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's one of those ticking time bombs in the care space. Then that other is, why did they accumulate any type of wealth? Even their homes, Matt, which is your forte, right?
Sure.
They didn't accumulate it to hand it to caregivers. Or the state. They accumulated it to hand it to their loved ones, right? So we confront this denial first. That is like, oh yeah, that's not going to be me. Except statistically, 70% of individuals before they pass will need some form of care. Average is how long, Kerry?
Well, that's up for debate, right? So a lot of and that's actually a point of misconception and myth for a lot of people, because you'll hear one average quoted, maybe it's 2-point-something years or something. And that just comes from like nursing home claim experience from a particular insurance company, right? Well, that's very skewed. How many years did they have care in the home?
Sure.
Maybe, it's just a living level before that even happened, And so that's where the technology that has been created by these 6 PhDs it's really nice for us, because I have the experience having been with those families. Sometimes I feel like I'm coming to them from their future because of all the families I've seen and the journeys, because there's a lot of commonalities to all these people's pathways that nobody wants to think about. But if you see hundreds of people, you begin to see trends, right?
Yeah.
And so that's our job, is to try to help them really understand that this idea, this paradigm that was integrated into society in the 1980s, 90s, and 2000s, Matt, of, the only choice is traditional long-term care insurance. And if I'm not super healthy, I'm not going to get it. it's too expensive, the price is never locked in, it's always going to go up, that's the only choice, and it's that or nothing, that's a huge myth and misconception. Wow. That's causing a lot of people to miss out on amazing solutions and ways of planning that are completely contrary to that are more of a win-win. So whenever we can, we can employ solutions that give them a multiple of their dollars if they need care. Got it. Or a money to the family if they never need care and they die without it. So we want to root for them to never need care. Absolutely. We just want a backup plan so that the portfolio, the nest egg, doesn't have to bear all the brunt of that and get wiped out because
that's of it, right? Awesome. That's awesome. Maybe you guys could share an example.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah, maybe you could share an example of when you put together a plan like this. Maybe someone was going to have challenges, but you put together the plan and then you see what it's going to look like now. That would be awesome. Maybe for people conceptually, they'll learn a little bit more about what you guys do.
Right. You know what I'm thinking about, Kerry? So we have relationships that we've been blessed to be developing in the care space.
Okay.
To the individual's benefit, we much prefer what we call pre-crisis planning, Matt, sure. Right? Catch them before our ability to benefit them is in multiples greater in some cases, right? In many cases.
Right.
But we're also in that space where because of denial, when do we see these cheap, pardon me, but I'm not the consummate professional. So I see these cheap 2-year little long-term care plans, right? That they're going to go in and get $2,000 a month from. You're not going to buy lunch for $2,000 a month in this world. I mean, with this care world.
So you're saying the denial is more than a river, huh?
It's more than a river, brother. Okay. So with that said, we have a beautiful lady who comes in due to an introduction from one of our care providers, who's been caring for her mother for 30 years. Okay. Her mother has lived with her since the father passed away. A beautiful story. And this lady is a professional. She's been a professional for these 30 years. She's balanced caring and loving for her mother, who has been independent for the most part, most of those years, right? Mm-hmm. And then she's allowed her to save her little bit each month that came in after father passed away. Mm-hmm. So now it's at the point where, and I'm going to hand this to Kerry in 1 second to tell the story, but it's at the point where she's sitting down with us and she's saying, mother needs more care than I can provide. Okay. And I'm retired. I want to enjoy some of my years now. There's guilt, there's frustration, there's complicated concepts and process. At the end of the day, she's looking at the cost of assisted living and saying, that is not going to work. Mm. Hand off to Kerry. He goes to work. Tell him what happens.
Yeah. So in her situation, it was just really huge, it's a pivotal moment when you meet these families at that point of making these big transitions, right? So it's stressful enough as it is, emotional enough as it is without the financial side of it. Mm-hmm. So in this scenario, mom had saved about $400,000.
We were first told $250,000.
We were first told $250,000.
Okay.
So we're coming in on the table, right?
Because that's what the daughter thought.
Exactly. So the first consultation,
we found more money.
she understands the process. She goes back. The second she comes back, she goes, correction, we've got 400 instead of 250. We're like,
yeah,
where did that come from? We printing money? We want no. Yeah. They ended up doing some review and realizing there's another 150 there.
Yeah, and so
that was just
her dad. Her dad was a wartime veteran, and so there was a couple things going on. One, we were solving to fill that care gap. One of the tools that we had to work with, and that's really the big takeaway here, okay, is not any one particular case. The big takeaway here is that each family comes to this moment with their own set of nest egg, their own set of tools. They're tools to us. Mm-hmm. So whatever somebody has saved or whatever their situation is, that's what begins to dictate the possible pathways out of that scenario to fill that care funding gap. In her situation, wartime veteran, but in 2018, as opposed to what we used to be able to do, planning for wartime veterans and then file right away, 2018, the VA put a 3-year look back on that, meaning that if you did planning to align yourself with the requirements, that you had to wait 3 years if you moved any money out of your name.
Okay.
So long story short, in this situation, yes, we can incorporate that. But I'll say this, I think it's important to say, when you're doing this kind of planning, you have to understand how to coordinate Medicaid law, VA law, State Department of Revenue law, and the IRS, right? And so you have to just, because you don't want to create a bear trap for somebody. So long story short, through some consultations with some of my elder law attorney friends, et cetera, we were able to discover a pathway for her where we could get VA started right away. And it has to do with the expertise of some of our resources. And all of a sudden, we found $51,000. That's 3 years worth of that surviving spouse's benefit. And we're able to start that planning and process. We'll be able to file that claim right away for her. And that's unlocking $1,700 and some change a month.
Right.
That's a lot of money, right? To add to her Social Security of $3,000. So now she's at $4,700 a month, right? Now her care cost is $7,000, so we still have some work to do. But that was going to take her from the $400 down to the $155 that VA allows her to have. So again, that's one scenario, but every family is different, and it's our job to know what options to bring forth for each family. Maybe it's a Medicaid consult paired with some other planning. Medicaid is a big deal these days. It's not just for the poor anymore, frankly. It doesn't mean that. So here's another important thing to come out in this conversation, Matt, is that humans are tempted to really kind of be binary. Humans, because our frontal lobe doesn't like to work hard, right? So our croc brain's job is to protect our frontal temporal lobe from having to conserve energy. So by nature, we're tempted to want things black or white, one way or the other. Well, I can either do this or I can't. Well, let me tell you, this type of financial stuff is not like that.
Got it.
It's multiple pathways that, and it's not your people. I've had people come in and, oh man, I'm sorry, I didn't even know this. Well, you're not supposed to know it.
Right.
That's not what you do. Right. And it's too complex to learn as a hobby, right? So anyways.
How do you say it, Kerry? It's not rocket science, but.
It took us 20 years for it not to be rocket science.
Wow. Great.
Yeah. So, but it's fun, and so I'll cap it off with this. It's the art of it, right? It's the puzzle pieces. That's what guys like us enjoy doing.
Wow.
So Matt, if we have time, I'll jump in on an inverse example.
Sure.
Okay. So we get called to a community and of care. And we sit down with adult children who have been through this, frankly, horrific journey. I don't know if it's appropriate or not on this episode to make this comment, but it's not my quote, so I'm just reciting it from a gentleman we'll give credit to. But we like occasionally to say, don't go through hell on your way to heaven, okay? Right. It can be a horribly difficult time, not only for those who are needing care and not getting it and confused about what they really need, et cetera, but the adult children. So we sit down with the adult children at this care community, and we are told prior to the meeting, they're out of money, and the parents are going to have to move out of their home in this community, which they've been in, 2 years? Mm-hmm. They've been in 2 years because they had to their credit, they did something way back when somebody said something, and they had a little 2-year policy that was helping them be able to stay there. But the reality is we're sitting down with this husband and wife, and again, without disclosing any privacy matters, I mean, they were just exhausted. I mean, there was literally some reference to, do you have counselors to help? Because this is a grievous journey.
Because mom and dad, they had sold a farm in Ohio probably 6 or 7 years before, moved down here to just a regular apartment, like not independent living, just an apartment building. Well, what that meant is that the adult son and his wife locally became really those kind of part-time overseers, caregivers as things began to progress. So it was 4 or 5 years in that apartment. Yeah. And you could see every one of those years on that son's face.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And the daughter-in-law, she was kind of the take charge kind. Thank God she is, and they made a great team.
Yeah.
And then, so I guess I've heard this phrase so many times, like, well, when it gets bad enough, we'll do this, or when it gets to this point, I can't. Here's the classic one: when I can't handle it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we could do a whole segment on just that right there. Okay,
yeah.
Right.
What does that mean when you can't handle it anymore? Is it when you're halfway on the way to divorce? Your kids who are in college feel very neglected. Maybe you even got kids in that.
You're spending your own retirement on your parents' care.
Yeah, there's so many things. Like, don't let that be the boundary.
What does that do to their lifespan as well? Like you were talking earlier.
Absolutely.
And because they're holding this little policy, which is a blessing, and more power to it. So what happened is they hit that point, moved them into a nice assisted living. Mom and dad, that policy paid out $6,000 a month, and their income was about $5,300 a month.
Yeah, it was over.
So they had about $11,000 a month coming in, and but didn't actually save any money along the way. So they hit the 2-year mark. Policy's about to run out, and everybody's ready to move out. What we've surmised very quickly is, had we been able to be introduced and build a care funding plan for them in the beginning, we would have said, hey, listen, for every $1,500 a month that you save in the front end of this, that's another month you can stay after this policy runs out. Mm-hmm. So we could have actually very easily advised them on how to create another 2 years out of the cash flow they had received. So that's just kind of an interesting example.
Wow.
So Kerry just introduced something I don't think we said in this entire podcast yet. And early we said, we've kind of got lightning in a bottle. We'll talk about the lightning, but the bottle just came up. The care funding plan, Matt, is really the piece we hand to our clients.
Okay.
And that is the process of first gathering information to understand not only their lifespan, we literally now are delivering a report scientifically showing them with high probability, high certainty, life insurance companies do it. They've done it for, a century plus. Centuries, frankly. Right. Somebody said in 2008, 364 banks closed, crashed, went away.
Yeah.
0 life insurance companies did. Why? Because they know when we're going to die. Sure. Okay. And so this is the science we're bringing forward to our consumer now, to our client, we like to say friends, to our friends, and saying, let's get this report on the table so we're not just talking in what we think or feel or don't want to believe anymore, right? Yeah. And then we can pivot to a plan that says, here's the way we can approach what the science is telling us.
Yeah, so there's a lot of single folks in that scenario, but just to touch on another piece of that report is helping that younger spouse, maybe healthier spouse,
sure,
really see and visualize how many years they're likely to be without their other spouse, how many years they have a reduction of income when that first spouse dies, that kind of thing, and helping them think that through and plan for that and plan for their own care.
And, Kerry, I'm thinking too, a lot of times we see couples like my own folks, my own parents. Yeah. They're 82, 81, right? My mom has been a little healthier. So she literally, we found out this spring, has been navigating dad's cognitive decline over the last 5 years in a way that we really didn't, denial. We didn't want to believe, oh, that's just, Papa John, whatever. And now my mom's diagnosed with lung cancer this spring, and the whole, what do you call it? House of cards is teetering, right? Mm-hmm. And it's that one event. A lot of times at the shows we say, "Mom fell again," something like that just triggers this. So then the adult children are, essentially. I literally had a conversation last weekend with my cousin. Her father's 80. And he's been as healthy. He throws horseshoes. He's a champion horseshoe thrower. Been healthy, not afraid of the alcohol all of his life. Okay. He just goes, right? And all of a sudden, bam, the week I'm going up there, he's been in and out of hospital 3 times, in and out. They can't figure out what's wrong. Talking to my cousin, and she says, we just never expected this. And it's comical except grievous, because in that moment, their hearts are breaking. They're going, what do we do now? There's not a plan for that we never expected moment.
Well, you touched on a point, and that's it. All these people think that they can kind of predict how it's going to be based on what, oh, well, my mom had this, my dad had that. Listen, I'm here to tell you, yeah, there's some markers for a few different things, but man, you just don't know how you're going to age. You really don't know
what our software does.
That's right. You know, Father Time's undefeated, right? It's going to catch it.
It's absolutely true. And giving them a sneak peek now in our report of their health span and care span, my point simply is a lot of times, if they're equivalent in age, one of the spouses is caring for the other at some point, right? And initially it's modest, it's mild. And then eventually it becomes more and more. And you know what, that frog in the...
I was just thinking about that.
You were thinking, weren't you? Exactly. I mean, they don't realize they're being boiled until they are.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's part of that process, right? If we do this report for them, they can literally see, okay, we're both, 63 now or something.
Yeah.
But literally with a photo, okay, and reasonably intensive, but not painful series of questions.
Right.
We throw it back into the database. Key markers, lifestyle markers. They're not invasive. They're just realistic.
Yeah.
And then we throw it back in, and it pulls back out and says, okay, if he's, they're both, let's say 63, he's going to live to 81. She's going to live to 84, but he's going to need care from 75 to 81. She's going to spend some of the more difficult years of her life being a caregiver, which she was never trained to do.
Right.
And if she understands this, they plan ahead. They have help. I've seen the help. You've seen the help.
Yeah.
It's life-changing when they have it.
Yeah.
So
you watch families in the beginning. My goal is to see the stress level go from here down to here after a plan is implemented. And that's, it just brings confidence.
That's so awesome. And that's what I love about what you guys do is there's, just like what we do, you figure out there's a delta, right? How much you're going to need, how much do you have? Unfortunately, you have to be the bearer of bad news, right? If it goes the way we think it's going to go, you're short. Oh, by the way, I'm glad we met you now. We have some options to fill that delta, right? To fill what you're short. And that's where we come in to help as well, too, because a lot of people, they haven't planned. Maybe you guys can fill half of the bucket, but we still have the bucket that's half empty, right? And that's where we're able to come in and say, well, let's talk more about your house. Right. Maybe you didn't buy a long-term care policy 30 years ago, but by the way, maybe you did, right? Instead of called a policy, it may have been called a mortgage. Instead of a premium, it was called a payment.
Ooh, yeah, there you go.
That's probably love you, Matt.
You made it every month, and instead of cash value, you call it equity. So here's a way you can use it to fill out the other part of the bucket that Tim and Kerry can't fill for you. And then since our loan programs don't require a monthly payment, we can help, fill that. So you fill half of it, we fill the other half of it, and then they can have the care and the retirement that they deserve. So it works.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a beautiful part of the process.
Yeah, I've seen it. And I hear home equity conversion loan, reverse mortgage, they're interchangeable, right? Aren't they? Yeah, I mean, I've seen it save a guy's life before.
Wow.
Years ago, I'll never forget it. And his wife had been through a cancer journey, a lot of bills and everything. He was so distraught. He was truly suicidal. Had no clue that this option even existed. This was a long time ago. This was probably 07 or 08. And so all of my years of planning, there's always certain points. There's several referrals I give every year for that solution, because there's just nothing else like it. So when it's a fit, it's a great fit. There's just nothing else that will do what that reverse will do. Yeah. And as you know, and you would say, no financial tool is a do it all. Like you can't apply it to everything. So, it's important to work with somebody who understands both sides of it, like you do, Matt. And when I say both sides of it, what I mean is the journey that we're talking about, this care journey, and your focus and your passion for seniors. A lot of a lot of mortgage people, come into this field just because, okay, this is where our market is. They're 62 and up, et cetera, and they just don't get very deep in their understanding of what's going on. So that's the genius of your podcast, is you get to interview all these people and find out what's going on.
Absolutely. I was gonna throw in, Matt, if you could just tap on this again, because we're excited about sharing this conversation with a lot of folks that follow HonorShield and what we're doing.
Sure.
A lot has changed. And I remember the first time we talked to you in depth, Kerry just mentioned 0708. A lot has changed in the reverse mortgage universe.
Sure.
I remember you told me about a law in the mid-teens, I believe, that transformed some things, created tremendous security. So your universe is substantially different, I think you generally say, than your father's reverse mortgage.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Yeah. I like to say this is the new and improved consumer protected version of a mortgage.
There we go.
So, the big changes are we can lend a much lower percentage, meaning that whenever you either pass on to the next generation the house or decide to sell it yourself, as long as the market doesn't completely crater, there should still be equity that you'll still get equity. You have to take, besides us educating you, you have to take a class. So you have to take, it's about an hour and a half, 2-hour phone call class that goes through pros and cons. So even if we could talk you into it, then they would talk you out of it anyway, right? So we just shoot straight and give you the facts, the pros and cons, and then these are independent third parties that kind of walk through the process. And the other thing is now in most states, not all, but most states, all these are completely FHA loans, meaning that they're all insured loans, meaning that if you happen to hit Armageddon and you owe more than the house is worth someday, you don't have to pay, and your estate doesn't have to be liable for that. The actual FHA would cover it. So a lot of the protection has all been given to the consumer. So you're exactly right. It's completely changed. So what we do, kind of like what you guys do, is just try to educate and teach people the pros and cons. If they'll ask, we'll give them what we would do for their situation. But ultimately, our goal is to either educate them into it or educate them out of it with the same advice we'd give our grandma or our mom or dad is our goal.
Well, and Kerry, let me tap on this real quick. That's where what you're doing, where his book, I was going to mention, we love reading books that are engaging in this space. But I have one on my mind right now that we both read recently that was just like, game on. And inside of it, I'm not going to mention it because I'm going to tell you the most important book you need to get first. Okay. 1 second. But inside that book, there was conversation about what's happening in Canada, what's happening in Europe, and the amount of homes that are being handled for that income needed in the retirement or that care cost needed, right? So it sounded like to me the U.S. is with the new laws that were brought in, we're still lagging behind the reality that's going to be us in the years to come. As Kerry said, with the boomers, 78 years old is the oldest right now. Now, to the books, okay, the most important book they should pursue first is When Retirement Goes Bad, Life Sucks. Go back on Amazon, grab that book, because it really is literally, who read that recently and said it was the most powerful, depressing, and motivating book I've ever read.
Wow.
Okay.
It's reality.
Because there's some reality there that really confronts the denial element, right? And
3 or 4 stories, it covers the high roller couple, the happy-go-lucky couple, the widower, the divorcee. So it's a narrative it's
wisdom chapters in between.
Yeah, wisdom chapters, how to be a care manager instead of a caregiver. Things like that.
So those are really important. But with respect, the trends are all in front of us on, what we're seeing in Canada, what we're seeing in Europe, and what we can do here as we continue together with great people like yourself, Matt.
That's awesome.
To serve this community.
That is so cool. Well, guys, you've been a wealth of knowledge and some fantastic examples. Anything that I should have asked you that I didn't, that you want to cover before we run?
Well, no, but one thing I was wanting to say was just the difference between mortgage professional and mortgage professional, because a lot of that technical stuff that you mentioned is all standardized, right?
Yeah.
And so somebody could be saying, well, why would I work with Matt versus somebody else? And the difference is there are enough options in how a reverse mortgage can be received, like any equity funds can be received or set in a line of credit. That's where you set yourself apart, because you really look at their situation and you help them understand, like, okay, well, it looks like to me, you guys get this now, just letting this set in this line of credit, it's going to grow inside the line of credit. It's not going to build any interest against you while you do that, et cetera, just all those different options. That's where you make the difference over a lot of other mortgage people. So I just wanted to get that out there. People don't realize that it can get you. Let's say you get past through all those hurdles and all the government checks and everything. It's understanding what's the best way to use it for you. It's almost a Swiss Army knife in a way.
Yeah. And I would just throw in, if anybody's watching and they say, well, my advisor says I've got this covered. Okay.
Right.
I used to be that advisor.
Okay.
I would say, don't worry, you got plenty, you got it covered. From here on forward, go in and ask for a care funding plan. That details their lifespan, the healthy years, the care years, that gives them a roadmap with guarantees that they will address the care years most tax efficiently, tax effectively, and absolute certainty they will never run short and enhance what they hand to their loved ones, which is probably why they accumulate.
Great question. And something tells me they're probably not going to get that from their advisors. So how's the best way for them to get in touch with you guys to get something like that?
Well, now we're talking about the bottle again, and I said we're only going to talk about the lightning. So the reality is we've really been in the care communities, and it's exploding right now. Here's the best way. Go to HonorShield.com.
Okay.
Drop us a quick line there, HonorShield.com. Real simple, real easy. Spelled just like it sounds. Okay. HonorShield.com. Drop us a quick line. We'll reconnect. The consultation is absolutely zero cost. We do an initial consultation. We gather the information. We allow them to understand the process from there. And if they like what they are hearing, they have an opportunity to engage with us for the full reports and continued guidance for it.
Wow. That's awesome, guys. Well, I knew this would be awesome, and you guys have over-delivered. So I really do appreciate your time, appreciate the advice. Look forward to hanging out with you guys. We'll have to do this again. What I'd love to do is every so often just check in, have some really good examples, more dialogue, and continue to serve these seniors at a high level. If you guys are good with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, brother.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks again. Keep up the good work. And thank you for watching the Serving Senior podcast, where we highlight these individuals that serve seniors so they don't just survive retirement, but thrive in retirement. Thanks again. Have a great day. Talk to you soon. See you guys. Hey, this is Matt Helton with OneTrust Home Loans, home of Retirement Mortgage Solutions. And we really do appreciate you checking out the Serving Seniors podcast today. Now, please go to the description down in the body of the podcast where you can subscribe to get future shows. Please click that notification button so you get notified when other shows drop. And also, if you can go to servingseniourspodcast.com, and we'd love to hear a comment about our show. We have a heart to serve seniors, and we have a heart to make sure seniors don't just survive retirement, don't just get by in retirement. We want to show seniors how to thrive in retirement. So if you know of anyone that's 55 and older that could use some extra cash flow, maybe the retirement's not going the way that they like, our retirement mortgage solutions are designed for folks, and depending on the state, they're either 55 or 62 and older, to make sure that they have that kind of retirement that they want. As long as they own a home and they're in a good equity position, there could be some solutions that they may not have thought about, or maybe they've thought of and they just didn't know how they work. That's what we do. So anyone in that age group that could use some mortgage advice, my team and I would love to be able to help them. Thanks again, and look forward to seeing you on the next show. Have a great day.